Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. Minimalism. It's the art of doing a lot with very little resources, harmonic, rhythmic, instrumental resources. Today, I want to look at a simple chord progression from one of Philip Glass's piano etudes. We'll really just kind of focus on his use of tiny shifts by a half step a lot of the time to create like a shifting world within the harmonic landscape. It's genius. It really is. Let's take a look. I have a feeling I should just play this for you, but I'm going to play it and talk at the same time. And maybe I'll pop the score up on the screen, but in any case, this is the first maybe 8 bars of Piano Etude number 5. He begins with a very simple F minor chord, followed by D flat major, and back to the F minor. And then a very strange turnaround, E major, right? A lot of the same notes, back to F minor. C major, it's the 5 chord sort of to what we're expecting because we go back to F minor. And then this strange D flat minor chord, we're back to F minor, C. It's not really repeating. It's different every time. This very strange diminished chord and back to F minor. We keep returning to the F minor. Here's a beautiful little walk down to a very deep F minor chord. And he's going to sit on that F minor chord. Each of those chords in succession changes very little from its neighbor. Very often only 1 or 2 notes change. And yet the emotional landscape sometimes feels like someone reached down the throat of the chord, grabbed the tummy, and inserted everything. Just pulled it right in half, right? So let's take a look at these and that really is just a left-hand part. Later on, funny things start to happen in the right hand. I've expanded the screen a bit. So his first voicing, F minor, is over the C, and then his second voicing, D flat major, over the D flat. You can see that right away there's this beautiful little half-step motion up to the D flat. It creates a kind of a expectation. Glass is a master of hinting at functional harmony without ever really buying into it. That D flat major acts as a foil to the F minor, and F minor comes back. And then this very surprising E major chord follows it. Those are the first 4 chords of the etude. And as you can see, there are some interesting chromatic shapes built in. Look at what happens to the bottom line. C, D flatter is what he calls it, C sharp, back to C, down to B. This is basically an E major chord, isn't it? B, E, G sharp. E major and F minor share this top note. In fact, this top note is in common with all the chords. Minimalism. Move very little. Another expression is the rule of parsimony. Parsimony is a $5 word which means cheap. I'm cheap. I'm parsimonious. Okay, going on to what he calls section 2, back to the F minor chord, and its 5 chord C major. Back to the F minor chord, and then a very surprising, he calls it D flat minor. Every one of those notes is spelled with a flat. You could also think of it as C sharp minor. Again, we've got tiny little chromatic adjustments, each voice moving only by a step, and yet this moment right here comes as kind of a weird shock. F minor, C major makes perfect sense to our ear. Back to the F minor, feeling of relaxation. Don't relax. Whoa, what the heck? It's funny because it sounds a little bit to me like a rootless B flat half diminished chord. And in fact, we get that next. F minor, this is his 3rd section. C, F minor, and sure enough, there's our B flat diminished chord. You can see the minor third here, and the B flat's on top. If I put it down here, it would be very obviously a diminished triad, right? But of course, that's not good voice leading. And one thing that's true of Glass, not only is the harmonic resource sort of language narrow, his voice leading is always tight, compact, moving as little as possible to create the most effect that you can do. Well, going on into the last section, we finally get a little bit of motion in the bass. And it's not much, but it's enough to create a really interesting energy. There's the F minor chord again, and C, and the bass walks down to A flat, and it's another F minor chord here. In fact, it's a two note. It's what my teacher called a fractional F minor until you finally have the F again. So you have two A flats there. I'd love you to listen to the entire Glass Piano Etude number 5, because he extends this concept by adding tones on the top and the bottom, and it's a little bit beyond the scope of this discussion today. What I wanted to really point up about this particular piece is its absolute devotion to reducing things to the minimum. 3 notes, things moving only by a step, by a half step a lot of the time, and yet each chord creating its own emotional world. As you study classical composers, their big pieces can be overwhelming, but almost every classical composer from every period, and that includes the modern period, has written etudes. Etude means study, and the composers are studying not only their own ideas, their own conceptions, but they're presenting pieces which can be used for us to gain insight into their thought process. Something like this is a microscope into a certain part of the thinking of really one of the great musical minds of this century. And every composer has done something like that. Etudes are a powerful way to get into the thinking of great composers. And after all, one of the wonderful things about music is it's a way to crawl into the minds of an amazing person, right? I love that about music. Hey, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe and ding the bell. You'll be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.